Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar on automating disaster recovery orchestration using OCI Full Stack DR. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tara Van Cleve and I'm a marketing event manager for the developer initiative here at Oracle. Today we're excited to provide an overview of OCI Full Stack DR and show you how to use it to automate the switchover operation for a three-tier app. If you do not currently have an Oracle Cloud account, we've got a special promotion with extra credits so that you can try out OCI services yourself. To access the promo, please sign up using the same email that you registered with for today's event. We'll also be recording the session, and the link to the recording will be sent to you via email in the next couple of days. If you have any questions during the webinar, we've set up a channel in our developer public Slack called Full Stack DR that you can access at the QR code or at bit.ly/odevrel_Slack. Once you're in, you land in the general channel, and from there you can search for the webinar channel. We'll also be checking the Zoom chat and the Zoom Q&A areas throughout the webinar, and we'll open up for live Q&A after the demo. Today's webcast will be presented by Greg King, Principal Product Manager. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Greg.
Thanks, Tara. I have a lot of things to show you guys, and so my screen's pretty crowded. So I'm Greg King. I'm the product manager for Full Stack DR. I work for the development and engineering team that writes and maintains Full Stack DR. Suraj Ramesh, actually, let me bring this out a little farther. Suraj Ramesh would normally join me for these webcasts, but he's on vacations this week, so he's not going to be joining us today. Suraj is focused on the Full Stack DR, but works for the Oracle MAA database team. Now, Suraj and I usually answer the questions in the background for each other, but since he isn't here, I'm going to pause here and there to answer questions, and I think Tara said that we'll do some at the end of the session, so we might just wait until then. I'll leave plenty of time to answer those questions. So Full Stack DR has an extensible framework that is highly customizable and allows you to basically manage any Oracle or non-Oracle application stack. So what I'd like to do today is show how to add custom plan steps to call any custom automation you need to accomplish tasks during a recovery for things that we don't do out of the box or even know about. First, I'd like to show you a couple things, though. Tara was really nice to set up this channel for us, this customer-facing channel or external-facing channel right here. And I've added a few things here. The channel she showed there for a little bit is in this DevRel workspace, and it's called Full Stack DR. When you go there, I have pinned to the top of these things some videos for how to get, getting started with Full Stack DR, how to configure Full Stack DR, Full Stack DR in action. These are actual videos of things like we're soon going to be adding how do you do, EBS. We have out there how to do WebLogic, and then we have another fictional one that goes with our fictional MuShop application that we've done a video for that is the one that we have in our hands-on lab. Anyway, those are out there on YouTube, Oracle Learning. Everybody has access to them. I just added this under this resources tab right here. So we have a, let me see if I can click on this thing. We have this, some scripts out here that you guys, they're Python scripts that you guys can download. It's in the GitHub, so it's publicly, anybody can access these. Go to GitHub and you can download any of these things. So I'll try to talk about these a little bit later, but those are also accessible from the Slack channel that I'm talking about. Documentation, our product page, user guide, API guide, the hands-on lab I was just talking about, and then, of course, the scripts again. And then I also am starting to put some of the technical blogs and things out here for you guys to look at. Okay, so there's that. Let's take a look. Oh, so what I'd like to do is kind of review what Full Stack DR does for us. And I'm going to move this off to the side there, get it off the screen. Here we go. I'm going to skip this. I'm going to skip this, and we're going to go right here to key technical concepts. All right, so these are like it says right there, the fundamental building blocks. So everything in full stack DR is focused around DR protection groups, this concept of DR protection groups, which I'm about to explain. So I get this question a lot. A lot of people ask, what kind of RTO and RPO do you guarantee with full stack DR? I don't. We don't have anything to do with it at all, because everything that you set up for the full stack DR is going to manage for recovery. You are going to set that up. You're going to deploy, install, and configure, or your customers will install, deploy, and configure DR the way they want to do it, with the applications they want to use, not what I do, right? So you use just normal OCI services to set everything up. Full stack DR isn't really even part of your planning process. There's nothing you need to conform to or take into consideration before you start deploying an application. Now, you need to understand how full stack DR works so you can understand some of your options, like, oh, I could do it this way, and full stack DR will make it really easy for me to do the recovery steps. Or I want to do it this other way, and I'm going to tell full stack DR how to do it, right? So just to give you an example, so like it says right there on the screen, RPO, or recovery point, that's how you set up and configure Oracle Data Guard. Right now, you're gonna we use the DBAS services for OCI to set up data guards, so it's very easy for you. We have built-in automation for that. We can also handle, if somebody has a manually deployed or user-managed deployment of a data guard that they put on a virtual machine. We can handle that too. It's not built in, but I'll show you this, and I got a little demo video I'm going to show you here of e-business suite where we do that. And let's see, compute is, so RPO, recovery point for your compute, is how whatever OCI block storage or file system or object storage, whatever, replication policies you can set up and configure in there, that's going to be what determines your recovery point. I think out of the box, block storage does it every 15 minutes or something like that. I think they have a 15-minute recovery point. So that's what determines your recovery point. For recovery time, I use examples like this all the time. You take into consideration various, things like I have compute, right? How long does it take for your compute to start up? I don't know. I'm going to call it. I'm going to call things in OCI as fast as OCI will go and do it, and come back and tell me it's done. I'm going to move on to the next step. So we're just moving. We're going to move as fast as OCI moves. So if your virtual machines, let's say you got 50 virtual machines in a protection group, that's a very large application, but maybe you got 50 VMs, right? And they all take 5 minutes to start up. Your RTO is 5 minutes because I'm going to start them all at the same time. However, if you've got 9 of them that do 5 minutes and one of them takes 15 minutes to boot up, then your RTO is 15 minutes for for that part of the recovery process. How long does it take Data Guard to recover a database? I don't know, right? It's going to depend. How many transactions is the database doing? How long does it take for Data Guard once I call it? And if you got like 2 or 3 sick databases that you're wanting me to call, I'll call them all at the same time. I'll do switchover on 6 databases right now, right? How long does it take for Data Guard in OCI to go do that? I don't write any code. I don't maintain any code for Data Guard other than I know how to do the switchover for you during a recovery. Right, so however long it takes it to do the recovery and switch the roles from primary and standby, and then come back and tell me it's done. That's what determines all those things. All right, so when you start, you deploy your applications. You're going to devise the way that you want your recovery to flow. You are not going to need to figure out how to do. If you want us to move virtual machines from one region to another, you don't need to figure that out. We'll do that for you. You just tell me you have virtual machines and you want them to be moved, right? Then we'll do that for you. You don't need to tell us you don't need to figure out how to do Data Guard. You don't need to figure out how to do any of the storage. You know, I've got replicated storage. How do I make it available in the other region? And how do I get it reversed to go back the other direction, right? After I've done a recovery, and how do I clean up all the artifacts and things? You don't need to figure any of those kind of things out. If you're doing load balancer, that the scripts I just showed you in the GitHub, there's one there for load balancer. And in our next release, we have another release coming out around the July timeframe that's going to have a lot of these things that I'm talking about right now. We're going to have a lot of these things built in, like load balancer will become a first-class citizen and be one of these members that I'm about to talk about. Anyway, you figured out how you do your DR, what you want us to do, right? And then maybe you got some scripts and things like that you already call as part of your automation. Once you got all those things together, now you're going to do full stack DR. And I'm going to give you, just before I go on with that, I want to give you one more example about the role that full stack, just to give you some perspective here, the role that full stack DR plays in the planning and deployment process. None, basically. So we just did this EBS demo that I'm going to show you in a little bit. And I'm showing it to you because it's got all custom steps in it. So I'm explaining to you, right, that even though we don't have something built into our product, doesn't mean you can't do it. In fact, Autonomous Database just came out with a really cool new backup and restore feature for Autonomous Database. Well, I don't have that restore capability built into my product yet, but I guarantee you we're going to add that because it's really cool. We can it'll automatically take backups, and we can automatically call it after we do recovery at another region. We can automatically call it and then restore from one of the backups. Now, we don't have that built in yet, and it's probably going to take me a little while before we can get that done. But in the meantime, you can still take advantage of that feature and add it to full stack DR. It's a highly extensible framework, very flexible. So let me talk about some concepts here. So we basically can handle any DR deployment architecture. Don't care. I don't care what old school mainframe term you want to use, right? Because these terms have been around forever. And I wish we would think of something else for cloud, because cloud's completely different now. But if you're doing a VM failover with database or without database or cold standby or pilot light or anything where you basically have virtual machines only in one region and you want them to be moved, and that's in air quotes, we don't really move things, but if we were going to make it, appear in the other region, then you're going to want to use movable compute. You design it. If that's what you want us to do, you're going to tell us use movable compute for these compute instances, which is going to tell us that you've got storage replication set up that has the boot and block for those virtual machines, and it's replicated to the other region. Now you set that up in OCI. I don't do that. You set that up in OCI, but I'm going to handle all that stuff for you automatically, getting it all ready and set up and to boot from the other region. Right now, this movable compute is just this is my fancy smancy animation, the only animation I have. So if you're going to move it from one, we're going to take the same virtual machines and move them from one region to another and back. If you want that kind of deployment architecture, then you need to tell us to do move, right? And again, you're going to have a bunch of, don't just think of one application when you're doing these things. Think of many, many applications. Because let's say, like EBS, for instance, right? If you don't have full stack DR, you have somebody that has a DR run book and they're spending like an hour or two typing all kinds of commands at a keyboard, right? And then when they're all done, everybody, it's not just one person either. It's going to be involving a lot of people. So anyway, when they're all done, it's all great. We got it done. We got it done in time. High fives all around. Everybody's excited and stuff. And now you go, okay, let's get the next one recovered. Okay, well, full stack DR, the whole point of this thing is to do DR at scale, which means that instead of sitting there and typing on a keyboard for 2 hours, you're going to push a single button and it's going to get the EBS going, or the JD Edwards going, or the PeopleSoft going. And in the meantime, you've added, you have 10 10 or 20 different other custom applications and things like that. Well, push the button for those too. And while EBS and PeopleSoft and whatever is recovering, so are your other systems. They're all recovering at the same time. And nobody's sitting there typing at a keyboard. That's the beauty of this thing. So anyway, you got movable compute, and now you have non-movable compute. So if you're going to do some sort of, you've decided that you want to do some sort of active or warm standby or hot standby, you're going to deploy it that way. Then you're going to come later on and tell Full Stack DR, this is what I want you to do with the virtual machines. All right. Now, I was going to say something else about this. I can't remember though. It'll come to me. So now these are the fundamental building blocks, right? So when you go into the console, which we'll see here in a moment, you're going to look for Full Stack DR, but what you're really going to find is DR protection groups. And that's because the developers like that name, because everything about Full Stack DR is based around and built around the concept of these protection groups. Now, protection groups are nothing but logical containers, and you build one at each of the regions where you want this business system to be able to, recover to and from, or move back and forth. I don't even like to use recover. Move it back and forth. A lot of people use this stuff for much more than just, disaster recovery. Anyway, so you create a protection group in each region. You give it a name. I like to use the region name in the name of the group. So, when I'm looking at it or operating on it, it reminds me of which region I'm really in at that point in time. Then you assign it a role. The function of role of primary and standby is a function of the protection groups, not of the region. Because a region can be a primary and a standby for different business systems. So that's the role. You assign a role to it, and then you associate these two protection groups to say together to say these are associated and they work together as a team. And everything that I put in this protection group, it's making one. They're associated into one business system. And you'll have many of these protection groups for every application that you want to do that doesn't work as a unit. You're going to have a different protection group pair. Now, contained in this logical container are two different object types, members and plans. So members tell us out of the 1,000 virtual machines in here in my compartment, these 5 are part of this business system. So don't worry about the other 1,000, just these 5. These 3 or 1 or 3 or 2 or 6, 10 different databases. I don't care how many you have. These are all part of this business system. And then the storage there is for the compute with the boot and the block volume on it. And if you're doing movable compute, you would replicate that. Now, storage replication has absolutely zero to do with database. You are not replicating storage for database. You're only replicating storage for compute. Database is handled with, for Oracle databases, it's handled with DataGuard. Now, we've defined the members, and these are all the things that are associated together to make up a business system. Now we need to tell what to do during a DR operation, a switchover or a failover, and that's what those plans are. And you're going to have a minimum of 4 plans, a minimum. You have to have a failover because you do everything from the standby site. And we're going to be pulling things from the primary site over to the standby site. And then we're going to make the standby site become the primary site. That's what we're trying to do here. Right. So you need a plan to pull for failover here that you see on my screen there on the right-hand side. I have a failover plan and a switchover plan that pulls things from region 1 to region 2. And on region 1, I have 2 plans there, failover and switchover, that pull things from region 2 over to region 1. Now, for failovers, I'm going to show you this in a little bit, but failover has a different task in it than a switchover will, because a failover means, we're implying that the primary region is gone, completely inaccessible. I can't actually access it at all, right? So we have a plan to handle that. You have to build a plan to handle that scenario. Then you also have to have a plan to handle switchover, which is everything's hunky-dory, everybody's happy. We're just doing 2 months ago, we planned this outage for an hour or two to move everything over to another location. All right. Now, normally I would stop for questions here. I'm going to skip this right here because this kind of gets a little confusing for people because you have members. This just describes members, and I'm going to move on back by that. And if guys, if anybody's interested, you can set up a technical session where we can do a technical deep dive on this stuff. Now, this is what a plan is. And right after this, I'm going to pause and look for a couple of questions. Not all of them, but a couple. So pre-checks, well, notice two things about these two plans. These are for movable compute, plan with movable compute. I use this as an example because it has more things in it. It's more interesting than a non-movable compute. And we're going to look at a non-movable compute here in a moment. So switch over with movable compute. Notice the difference with these two things. See that column with the region on the left, and then I have a column region on the right-hand side there, right-hand side. Notice that a movable compute for a switchover, it does things at both the primary and the standby because everything's up. There's no problems really. Now a failover, look at that one, that's all on the standby. Everything happens on the standby because the primary region is inaccessible. So that's when you would execute a failover, and that's why it only has steps at the standby region. Now we're going to talk about, I'm going to look at pre-checks here in depth in a couple other sessions here. How are we doing on time, Tara? Pretty good?
Doing well, yeah.
All right, good. All right, so those are examples of plans. And so when I said you add members of, let's say you're doing something like with compute and storage and database, right? You're going to hit a single, when you create these plans, I'll show it to you. When you create these plans, you're just going to pick one button, and it's going to create a plan with all these steps pre-built into it. I already know how to stop and start your compute. I know how to, stop the compute and then launch the compute. I know how to switch over the database. I know how to switch over the volume groups. I know how to do all these things. I'm going to put it in the plan for you. That's why it says built in. And I'm making a big deal out of it because I'm about to show you a video that has all user defined instead of built in. Now, it builds this. This is the basic plan. So you don't need to spend any time or thought putting this together. But once this is done, you can completely customize this. You can add your own custom steps in here any place you want to. You can reorder them. You can disable things. You can enable things. You can add any custom automation in here that you need to get the task done. All right, so now let's stop and look for some questions. Looks like everybody's asking in chat. So let's just put this. What if a VM or VMs are in a hung state and not coming up within the expected time? That's a good question. We have so something I should tell you about these plan groups is when you start an execution on one, in fact, the video kind of shows this, but it has a timeout, right, on the on it, and when you're monitoring, when you kick off a plan, it'll bring up what's called a plan execution, and it shows you all of the steps. Let me run that video and answer these questions. What kind of built-in intelligence? So when I'm talking about built-in intelligence, that's what I'm talking about. This right here, this is the built-in intelligence. You've added compute in there. You told me it's movable. And then I can figure out based on that what to do. That's the built-in intelligence right there. I'm looking at what you've added, introspecting it and say, hey, you've added 50 virtual machines. I'm now going to add a step to stop all those 50 virtual machines at the site without you doing it. You don't have to think about it. All right. So that's what I mean by the intelligence, built-in intelligence. Let's see. Sai is going to start an intro rating scale. That's good for music. That was good music, by the way. Slack channel. What else we got here? What if VM? Okay, we just answered that one. Pre-check, validate all. Yeah, let me talk about the pre-check. That's a good question. Yeah, and you can look into the scripts, of course, and you can get the logs. You're going to see all this stuff in a minute. Except the pre-check. Yeah, let me run this video for gosh sakes. All right, here we go. This is like 3 minutes long. Okay, almost 4 minutes long. So this is going to explain a lot of stuff that'll answer a lot of your questions. It goes very quickly. This is a e-business suite. I showed this. This is a video, a really crude video I created for the e-business suite development team that we showed them the solution about a week and a half ago now. And I created this video, and they don't know anything about full stack DR, so I've created this video to show them what we do. Right now, the cool thing here is this is what this call is about. Is it shows you how easy it is to customize this thing, right? So go ahead and watch it. This is from the perspective of somebody that is executing a plan, right? So I'm not going to show you how to install or configure anything in this video. And that's the beauty of this thing. The person that's actually doing the recovery with full stack DR doesn't need to understand anything about the application, because we've automated it all and put it into a DR runbook, which we call a DR plan. And so humans don't need to do anything, right? And that means that they don't have to bring up a spreadsheet or a Word document and then start going through each step and, log into this machine, SSH here, and execute this, switch users to execute this. You don't do any of that stuff. All right, anyway, so this is from the perspective of somebody that doesn't know anything about it. It's just, they're not, just like a admin, doesn't know anything about the application itself. Here we go. Let's see how Full Stack DR performs a switchover of an EBS workload from Phoenix to Ashburn. Customers access Full Stack DR by selecting DR protection groups under Migration and Disaster Recovery. From here, you will see one or more pairs of DR protection groups. Protection groups are pairs of logical containers that define all the OCI resources associated with a single Oracle or non-Oracle application stack across both regions. Notice that I'm currently in Ashburn. Select the standby protection group for EBS. Select Execute DR Plan. We log every step of the switchover process. Let's give this plan execution an optional name so we can find the log after this demo. Notice there are two DR plans. Choose the switchover plan to transition the EBS workload from Phoenix to Ashburn using the standard documented EBS process. Leave Enable Prechecks alone and execute the plan. DR plans are always executed from the standby region since we always assume the primary region is inaccessible. I'm going to expand all the plan groups so you can watch all the plan steps as they are executed. Notice that all plan groups and steps are user-defined. This is because we don't actually have anything built into Full Stack DR that handles EBS yet. Later on, we plan to work closely with the EBS team to develop built-in automation for performing all of these steps automatically. Full Stack DR executes pre-checks first. These basic sanity checks are added automatically for plan groups and steps that Full Stack DR finds in the DR plans. In this case, Chandra added a bunch of scripts to perform all the steps he usually tells customers to do whenever they perform a manual switchover. Plan groups are always executed in serial. Plan steps are always executed at the same time in parallel. In this case, we are just ensuring the scripts still exist and are accessible on the compute instance Chandra created for this purpose. If customers were using DataGuard through the OCI DBAS service, then we would also automatically ensure DataGuard and the standby database are ready. We begin executing the plan groups and steps if the pre-check is successful. These two steps are running at the same time. Customers can also view the logs as they are being written. And now, customers just sit back and monitor the progress, execute other DR plans for other EBS deployments, or other applications. When using Full Stack DR, customers can recover many completely different business systems in the same time it takes them to recover just one application stack manually. The ability to recover many systems at the same time with less effort represents DR at scale. Each business system can have completely different recovery point and recovery time objectives, with vastly different recovery steps using different deployment architectures. And the person executing and monitoring the DR plans does not need to know or understand anything about the applications. The DR plan is now complete and EBS is now running at Ashburn.
Let me point out just a couple more things before we go. This shows how long the actual switchover took according to OCI. We can see a few more things using the breadcrumbs to navigate back to DR protection groups. Notice that Ashburn is now the primary region and Phoenix is the standby region for this EBS system. This means there is nothing for the customer to reset or do to get full stack DR ready to fail over or switch back to Phoenix if the need arises. That's it. I hope this video was helpful and thanks for watching.
All right, hopefully that answered a few questions. I do have more stuff. I actually want to show you these things in the console. So there's a couple questions here. Let me skip back up here to some things that we skipped by. I want to make this really clear. So DR at scale, I just talked about that. I'm not going to do that. Validate this testing thing. So there's a question in here about the testing. So we have these things called pre-checks, and in our next release that I was talking about, we're going to have DR drills, and DR drills is kind of a mock switchover. We're going to create a snapshot of the database and try and start things up. And both of these things, pre-checks are built in now, and then the DR drills are coming. And then the DR drills, again, both of these things they do not disrupt production at all. They can be run against production. So this gives the ability for people to, validate and test things. The pre-checks that you saw are simple validation things. Like when you do network, when you add movable compute, you need to specify and I got a video about this too, by the way. Let me bring this back over here. This is really important. So if you go to this YouTube video thing over here, I have these like how to configure things there. And see this one right here. This is that understanding movable. It's 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay, it's not very long, but I go into real in depth about what the difference between movable and non-movable compute is in this video right here. Here's how to create protection groups. Here's adding compute and database for non-movable deployments. I'm going to create another one for movable deployments, and you can mix both of them. You can have non-movable and movable compute if you want to. I explain that in this one up here. Here's how you do the database stuff. If you want to add just database, you can have protection groups that have nothing but database in them, or you could have one that has nothing but virtual machines in them, right? Nothing but applications in them. It depends on how you what you want us to do. And there's a whole bunch of other videos in here that explain a lot of these concepts, and we're adding more all the time. There's this one here also, full stack DR in action. These are those ones I was talking about. Here's that one, the hands-on lab thing, right? Which somebody else has a question about hands-on lab. So this is the video of the hands-on lab, the whole thing, right? How you build protection groups and all that kind of stuff. And then this is for WebLogic server. So that video that I was just showing you, we're going to do a really nice version of that. And then we'll put that up here also. It'll be longer than that 4-minute one. But you want to look at those videos. Now, somebody was asking about the hands-on lab. And if we remember over here, I put it in the wrong place. I should put that under resources. I might move that over to resources, so don't take, it may not be here the next time you look. It'll be over in the resources one. So I just clicked on this documentation thing right here, and then I got hands-on lab right there. So somebody was asking about that. If they wanted a hands-on lab for this, there it is right there. And then there's those scripts. Let me get rid of this. What language is this developed in? Okay, so I don't know if I made this clear or not, but this is a 100% OCI native, fully native OCI service. Right? It's not some application that we ported into full stack. It's not in the marketplace. It's an actual service. It's a service just like the database services or the compute service or the block storage service or the file storage service, right? It's just another service. I believe the developers use Java. I think everybody that builds a service uses Java. this custom automation that I really desperately want to get to show you how to do this. The custom automation can be anything. I don't care. C, C++, C# for Windows, or whatever, right? Ruby on Rails, Python, Bash, whatever. Doesn't matter. You can call any kind of automation. And the other thing I should point out here is the, well, let's just go look at it. Let me open up this. I'm going to log in. All right, so I'm just logging into our tenancy here. I'm going to go to protection groups. Let's see. So here's a protection group, right? And so here's what you do to create these things. Well, maybe I should show you this. Let me just go to this one right here and add a custom. So this is when I, let's say I'm at primary. I can't create we won't let you create a plan at primary. It always has to be standby, which is a little tedious because it means you need to test your switchover plan after you build it. You need to switch this over to the other region and then build your plans. Now this region becomes the standby. Now you can build the plans there now that nothing's running there. Anyway, let's go over here and see, this is members, right? So these are the members I was talking about. So when you create a DR protection group, you add these members, right? And the members here, I've got 2 autonomous databases. I got these 3 compute instances down here, and then these are the volume groups that have the boot and block for this. And these, let's see this. I'm clicking on the volume group. If we look here, you'll see I have 2 block volumes here. And we also add this whenever you do a DR operation, we append this name to it. So you know that it was involved in a DR operation. I'm trying to get this changed because I'm Mr. OCD, and it bothers me that they changed the names of it. So I think we're going to change this. So we'll make it a tag or something like that instead to let you know that it's moved and what date time it moved. But your boot volumes and block volumes are here in this volume group, right? So anyway, you set all that stuff using the block storage, services. Block volumes, you create your block volumes here. You attach them to the instances, the compute instances, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, let me go back here to, whoops, went to the wrong one. Protection groups. I really want to get to the custom automation, so I don't want to show you too much more of this kind of stuff. But this button right there is the one that you do to create a plan, right? And I can't do it here at the primary. If I try to do it, it would fail, and it would tell you why it's failing. So if I go over to Phoenix, though, I can create a plan here now. I'm going to click on that protection group. Oh, you see, you can just see what I did here, right? I mean, I do these all the time. I forgot to delete these. These are the real ones right here, and these are the ones with my crafty name Greg in it, okay? And all I did here, and I'm not going to spend the time now doing it, but you just hit this little button, create plan right there, and then it's going to create this, right? It has all this stuff built in here. Now I disabled this myself. I can enable all those steps if I want to, just like that. By default, it has other things disabled, like this is disabled. Anything that's a terminate is disabled by default, and then you have to come in here like I just did. Let me get rid of this thing. You just come in here like I just did this, and you just enable all steps. And then here's what they look like, right? So I think we showed this in the other one, right? Now, you didn't have to add any of this stuff here, right? And then it adds all these pre-checks in here. I don't know if so then the video doesn't show these pre-check, but this one does, right? I'm going to go check all these things. And like I was saying with the network, when the movable compute, you have to tell it in that when I move over to the other region, what compartment will I find my subnet in? So let's say I have 2 VNICs associated with a virtual machine network interfaces, right? And they're associated with a particular subnet and a VCN in the compartment, right? And then when it goes over to the other site, you have to, that's in that movable compute video. You tell it, when you go over to this other site, I want you to use this compartment, the network's in this compartment, and I want you to use this subnet to assign to this VNIC when you move to the other one. That's part of the pre-check. Is that network still there, right? Yes or no. And then you can see that I added this do something in here, right? And I'm just going to do that right here. So I'm going to add a group. It's called a group because just back off here for a second. So this is a group of tasks, like switch over autonomous database. This is the group. These are the individual things that I want you to operate on. If I had 6 databases, you would see 6 lines here. This is what I want you to do a switchover on. Right, so this is a plan group. This is a plan step. You can create your own, plan group by hitting add group, right? Then once you do add group, another crafty name, right? Whatever. And then I'm going to add a step to it. And the step name is, like the other ones, really creative. Do something on VM03 this time, right? And the error mode is stop on error or continue on error. This answers you the other question that you had, right? What happens if something doesn't go right, right? I can either continue on error or I can stop on error. If I stop on error, it gives me the chance to go fix that problem and come back and continue. Then I can pause the plan, the entire plan. I can pause the entire plan, go fix my problem, and then come back here and restart my plan. But you can do stop on error. It has a timeout right there. And you can pick these things. It can be an Oracle function. It can be a script that's installed on a virtual machine, which I'm going to show you here. Or it can be an object storage script. Right, so if I pick this, I always choose this because it's more interesting. So I think these things are running at Ashburn right now. So I pick where the instance is running right now that I want this script to be running on. Now I'm in the standby region right now. This virtual machine I'm about to pick here is running in the primary region. So I'm telling it right now at this moment in time, this is where you're going to find that machine. But during the recovery, it's going to move over here to the standby site, and I'm still going to be able to find it because I told it where it is right now, and we're going to follow it automatically without you doing anything. All right, and then you just put the name of the script in here. Let's say opt. I love opt, right? Opt Greg. I love that name too. Greg and Ben and my script. And then arg1, arg2, and anything you guys want. I don't care what this is, whatever this script is, or program or application or whatever, it does not matter. Anyway, you put that in there, and then we say we want to run it as Oracle or root or opc, or because it'll use opc by default. All right, and then you just add the step in there. Right, and then after I've added that one step, I can add more steps to it. Right, so I can just keep doing this. And now every step I add in this plan group is going to execute at the same time in parallel. Right, so you kind of group things together and say, hey, I can do all these things at the same time. Right, and once all these things are done, then I can move to the next plan group. So you think about that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and add it. And then it's going to put it down at the bottom here in a minute. So it's updating right now. You can see it's updating. All right, let's look at questions while we're waiting for that to finish. It'll only take a minute. After failover, it will rebuild the necessary system. Yeah, you don't do anything after failover. Oh, wait a minute. That's wrong. That's a lie. I see what you're asking. So yeah, like a database after the failover, since it's going to be, we're going to recover it fine, but before you can fail it back or switch back the other way. So this is a really good question. Before you can go back the other way, you're going to have to log in and do whatever it is you need. Once the primary region comes back up, and this is for a failover, not a switchover. Switchover, you don't do any of this stuff because everybody's happy in that scenario. But in a failover where the region actually went away and you have no access to it and things really did crash, you're going to have to come back. Once that region comes back up, you're going to have to come back over there and get things cleaned up over there, right? Whatever, like the database is a good example. I'm not a DBA guy. If Suraj was here, he would tell you the command that you could run on the other one to get the database and data guard ready to go back the other way, right?
So that's one thing you have to do. That's about it. I think the replication gets set up automatically again. Once the region comes back up, the replication should start automatically. I'm not sure, but there are some tasks. You will have to do some things to make sure that that site, is ready to go. But as far as the plans and things like that, we'll handle all that stuff for you automatically. So, oh, my thing's done here. So there we added that another crafty name. But I want to go back here and see these roles right now. This is the standby role, and this one is then, by process of elimination is your primary. This one's the primary. This one's the standby. So this one is standby. This one is primary. This one is standby, and this one's primary. When you've at the end of the plan, without you doing anything at all, it's going to reverse these roles for you. And as soon as this thing has done the recovery, you can go back the other direction if you want to, without having to do anything. That's for a switchover. All right. Let me go back to this plan group thing here. This one, Greg's new plan. Is that the one I put it in? Yeah, another crafty name. Now I can put this anywhere I want to. So I got this thing up here called actions, and I can reorder these groups. And I just come down here, and this is an OCI thing, right? You chase it up to wherever you want it to be. Right after doing my terminate compute instances, I need to execute whatever this is. Right, and then I put it right there. And it's see now it says user defined because I built it. It's as opposed to built-in, that built-in intelligence I was talking about. Okay, so that's all you do to add the customization. So let me answer some of these questions, and I'll probably get to go where I really want to go with this thing. The cost of the service is super competitive. So that EBS thing that you just saw right there, that only has, the only thing they added to that was, that demo I just showed. It only had a single compute instance. And I think that compute instance had 2 OCPU assigned to it. So you take that 2 OCPU and you multiply that by 0.0128 cents per, per OCPU. So you got 2 OCPU, whatever that comes out to. Now, if that's your cost per hour for that one, then you multiply it by, everybody uses 744, which is 31 days in a month. They use 744 hours. So they multiply that number by the 744, and that tells you the monthly cost for that. And this is over and above what you would pay for whatever storage or anything else you're paying for. So after you've deployed everything, you're going to be paying something for the compute instance and the storage and stuff that you're using. Now, when you go and use Full Stack DR, we basically charge when you add something to these members. When you add a member to a plan group, that's when we start charging. So if you go here and look at members, I'm going to be charging you for however many OCPU these 2 autonomous databases, right? So I'm going to charge you that, 1.3 cents, basically. I'm rounding up 1.3 cents per OCPU here. Then I'm going to go over to the other region, right? And I'm going to go over the other region. Yes, I am. I'm going to go over the other region and do the same thing here. All right, I'm going to click on members, and I'm going to go, oh, okay, I've got these 3, and we only charged OCPU on database and compute. I don't charge you anything for the storage, right? Just for the compute, the OCPU, the compute and database is consuming. So I'm going to go find out on my primary side how many OCPU is my autonomous database using, and how many OCPU are my compute instances using. And then I'm just going to do that same formula. I'm going to take the total number of OCPU between the 2 sites. I'm going to multiply it by that 1.3 cents. And then I'm going to multiply it by, if I want it by the month, I'd multiply it by 744. And that gives me an approximate number of how much it's going to cost me per month. That EBS solution that I just showed you, well, actually, was it that one? No, it was another customer I was working with yesterday, and they had like 4 compute and a single database for their EBS, and it had 16 OCPU at one site, and at the other site, they decided on the standby site they were going to run 8 OCPU there for the database. They're going to half everything at the other site. So they took the number of OCPU at the primary site, and then they added that to the number of OCPU at the standby site, which was 50% less, right? Because it's cheaper to run it that way. And then they totaled that up, and then they multiplied that by the 1.3 cents times 744 hours, and they came up with $266 to protect their EBS system per month, a little over $3,000 per year. So that gives you an idea on the pricing. But anyway, let's look at this right here. So let's look at this plan. So now this guy Chandra, so I didn't tell you this. Chandra Dharanakota built this for us. Oh, that's what I was going to tell you before. On this EBS thing, it took Chandra 3 days to install and deploy EBS for DR without full stack. Did not involve full stack DR at all. Nothing to do with it. He just deployed it using Cloud Manager, EBS Cloud Manager. And he deployed it in the 2 regions. And then the Cloud Manager doesn't work with the way it sets up the database. It won't allow it to work with our DBAS, data guard. So they had to stand up a virtual machine, which it only has one virtual machine. It has the application on it, and it has the data guard on it, right? And so he installed data guard on that one instance, and then we manually log in. That's what this step is right here. Stop EBS at Phoenix. So let's see, switch over data guard. So he wrote a script right here. Let's look at it. He wrote a script, view details. He wrote this script right here called home Oracle DB switchover, which is right here. So I'm on that machine right now. This is the EBS, the one and only virtual machine that he has. And he has that script right here. There it is, DB failover, right? And I haven't even looked at this script. I don't even know what's in it. Oh, come on. There we go. Oh, there it is. So he does, it manually executes that. So you would write something like this to handle whatever you need to handle. So let's go back here, close that out. Then he wrote another. So this thing is all custom, right? This is all custom because I don't even do this. In fact, this Balagadetti guy wrote for OAC, Oracle Analytics Cloud. Those PaaS services are completely invisible to us. There's nothing for us to manage in those because I manage compute and database and storage. But when you build like an Oracle Analytic Cloud, or you're using, what's the other thing? Let me go here real quick. I just did this, blogging, integration cloud. These things are invisible to our product, just completely invisible to it. So Bala wrote this white paper. Actually, let me bring that white paper up for you. This is a really good example. So Bala Gadetti wrote this white paper right here on how to do Oracle Analytics Cloud manually, right? And I look at this, I read this and I'm going, oh my God, he's written every step he does to actually get something I can't manage or I can't see, it's invisible to me. He wrote all the steps down to actually accomplish DR. And then I go, oh, well, all I need to do now is I can make it so it's not invisible to me anymore. I'm going to create a compute instance that I can either move back and forth, or I can create a compute instance in both regions. And all these things that he's doing with these little scripts and stuff that he created, we put on that virtual machine. And now Full Stack DR is able to automate something that's invisible to us. That's how flexible the thing is. Right. So I really want to make, and that's why I'm really showing this off. I mean, you would think I'd be wanting to show off all the really cool built-in stuff we have, but for this call, I'm showing off all the really cool stuff you can do that's completely outside of Full Stack DR, because we have an extensible framework that allows you to do anything. You can build all kinds of custom solutions, and you can use Terraform. I didn't even mention that. It's 100% OCI native. You have access to all the SDKs, the CLIs, the Terraform, all that stuff. You can automate anything you want to with this. all these steps that I'm clicking on and doing, by hand, you can automate it if you want to. This automates the recovery steps. But if you want to deploy all this stuff, build the DRPGs and add custom steps and build a DR plan and then add custom steps and things to it, you can. So there you go. I hope that was really helpful for you guys.
And with that, we'll go ahead and conclude. Thanks so much, and we hope to see you again next time.